It's time to take a look at what's happening around Wyoming for Friday, August 2nd. I'm Wendy Corr, bringing you headlines from the Cowboy State Daily newsroom, brought to you by Wyoming Senior Olympics. Don't miss the action at this year's Summer Games from today through August 4th in Cheyenne. For more info and a schedule of events, visit wyomingseniorolympics.org. Historic Fort Laramie, Wyoming's first settlement, nearly went up in flames when an out-of-control wildfire nearly burned through it the past couple of days. The flames from what's now being called the Pleasant Valley Fire reportedly came to within about a mile of the site that's on the National Register of Historic Places. Cowboy State Daily's Pat Mayo spoke with residents of the town of Fort Laramie who'd been told to prepare for evacuation late Tuesday evening.
I interviewed one lady who works for the city government there, and she was telling me that they loaded up 2 chickens in a carrier into their orange Dodge 1976 van, which I can't even picture. And then they put the chickens in there, and then they had 2 cats. They put them in carriers and threw them in the back of the van as well. And then they brought their German Shepherd dog and tossed it into the back of the van as well. But they just kind of kept watching, and the firefighters in that neck of the woods, were able to draw the line at the canal to the west of town, about 2 miles out.
There are a handful of other fires burning around the state as well, in the northwest, the northeast, and the south central part of Wyoming. The Wyoming legislature this year did not entertain any budget or bill action featuring language about keeping former President Donald Trump off the ballot. Yet a handful of mailers sent to Wyoming residents last month claimed that several Republican Wyoming House incumbents voted for such a measure. Cowboy State Daily's Claire McFarland reports that Wyoming Secretary of State Chuck Gray is defending those mailers.
This all stems back to a footnote the Appropriations Committee put on Chuck Gray's budget, which said that he wasn't to spend Wyoming taxpayer dollars on out-of-state lawsuits without the legislature's permission. Those mailers essentially equated people who voted not to delete that footnote. It equated that vote to a vote to scrub Trump from the ballot.
Among those who have spoken with Cowboy State Daily, the legislators whom the mailers target disagree wholly with Gray's claim that their votes equate to an attack on Trump. A Colorado Parks and Wildlife plane that apparently looped into Wyoming airspace Tuesday has raised speculation that the aircraft was tracking wolves that had crossed the state line into Wyoming. But Wyoming and Colorado wildlife agencies told Outdoors reporter Mark Hines that there isn't any active tracking of wolves in the area.
Colorado Parks and Wildlife did confirm that they are doing some counts of pronghorn antelope. They're doing some, of their herd counts, which happen about this time of year anyway. So it could have been that, but other people are saying, well, okay, so what? And, government agencies need to be transparent regardless.
Wyoming Game and Fish spokeswoman Brianna Ball stated that her agency was not involved in tracking wolves near the Colorado state line. I'll be back in just 15 seconds with more news.
In southwest Wyoming, wide open space is waiting. This is how we explore it. In Rock Springs and Green River, Wyoming. Plan your adventure at explorewy.com.
Posters seeking information about missing University of Wyoming professor Nash Quinn cover bus stops, storefront windows in downtown Laramie, and on trailheads throughout Albany County. Yet despite a massive multi-day search that's had law enforcement, search and rescue groups, and volunteers covering nearly 70,000 square acres of private and public land, Cowboy State Daily's Jen Coker reports that Quinn and his white mountain bike remain missing.
There is no sign of him. There has been nothing found. It's a very rare case where his bike hasn't been found or any traces of him. And I spoke to the sheriff and I asked him if he had gotten any tips, and he said none. So this is a rare incident, and everybody is just very confused where he might be and what might happen. And unfortunately, there are no updates.
The 39-year-old fine arts professor, avid cyclist, and disc golf player is believed to have gone for a bike ride sometime between July 8th and July 21st and never returned. Major changes are coming to Wyoming's television news scene with the transfer of 2 stations owned by Gray Television to Marquee Broadcasting. The sale of stations KGWN in Cheyenne, KCWY in Casper, KSTF in Scottsbluff, Nebraska, and KNEP in Sidney, Nebraska have been pending FCC approval since February. Cowboy State Daily's Renee Jean reports that approval has now been granted.
The CEO, Gene Steinberg, told me one of the first things they're going to do is just listen to the community and kind of take an assessment of what the needs are and respond accordingly. There probably won't be any changes in play until later this fall.
2 weeks into the acquisition being finalized, Marquee has already hired a news director who will focus on listening to what the communities want to see in its news coverage. And after the dramatic explosion of Black Diamond Pool in Yellowstone National Park destroyed part of a boardwalk on July 23rd and sent visitors running, the ripped open landscape looks more like a war zone than a tourist attraction. Cowboy State Daily's Andrew Rossi reports that as scientists try to piece together what happened, they're recruiting citizen scientists to help research the aftermath of the blast.
So what they're hoping is that people who witnessed it themselves or took pictures of the Black Diamond Pool or the general area in the hours and days leading up to that explosion might share that information with them so they have a better understanding about what happened and how they might be able to understand these things in the future.
Biscuit Basin will remain closed to tourists for the rest of 2024. Scientists need to analyze the area to understand its current and future behavior better, while the National Park Service assesses the infrastructure damage caused by the explosion. And that's today's news. For a deeper dive into the people and issues that affect Wyoming, check out The Roundup, conversations with the most interesting people in the Cowboy State. A new episode drops tomorrow when I have a conversation with Wyoming country music artist Chancey Williams. You can find the link on our website, on our YouTube channel, and wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you'll find it in our free daily newsletter. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Wendy Corr for Cowboy State Daily.